Welcome to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. Hope you're having a great day as we continue to celebrate all the people who make Mississippi such a special place to live, work, and play. Listen, no big quotes to do. We're going to actually have a little bit of fun today, talking a little bit about Mardi Gras and what's happening in the city of Biloxi. So without any further ado, let's move over to my friend, the mayor of the city of Biloxi, FoFo Gilich, and say, how you doing, FoFo?
I'm great, Ricky. How are you? Good to be with you today.
I'm doing well. Hey, listen, I've had a little bit of fun because I was the publisher of the Sun Herald, but then I was also publisher of the newspaper in Mobile, and then also publisher of the newspaper in New Orleans. And when it came to Mardi Gras, I always enjoyed having a little bit of fun about that, because while the big celebrations and all the big Mardi Gras crew hoopla and all that is sort of internationally known, what happens in New Orleans, as you know, Mobile has always made the claim, and I guess history somewhat supports this, is that the first recorded Mardi Gras was actually in Mobile in March 3rd of 1699. And as you know, it was heavily influenced by French and Canadian explorers. But what I like to believe is that d'Iberville, the French explorer that came to Biloxi, actually observed some type of Mardi Gras tradition. So I always had a little bit of fun poking with my friends in Mobile and New Orleans to say that, wait a minute, while the big hoopla celebrations may not have taken place in Biloxi, it's very possible that Mardi Gras was observed by d'Iberville. So maybe Biloxi gets that claim.
Well, let's check the data, okay? So, we just celebrated 325 years. February 13th, 1699. Okay, and it's documented where d'Iberville landed, a little bit to the west of where the mall is. Okay, that was February 13th. Now, what you claim, may it please the court, that they celebrated Mardi Gras in March? That's a stretch. Since they just hit, that's a stretch. So let the data kind of confirm that. We've got logs from where he came aboard, even our friends a little bit in that village called Ocean Springs next to us, claims that, he got there. Well, we got, from February 13th to, March, they celebrated Mardi Gras. That's a stretch. So the data doesn't support that. But
hey, what's interesting, I spend a lot of time in artificial intelligence. I just enjoy looking at the different, if you do searches on Google versus if you were to go to AI, to a chat box and ask a question, what do you get? And I tried to ask this AI question every which way but loose to try to introduce Biloxi into the conversation about being the historic first. And you can't get it to answer that way. You just can't. That's right. So we got some work to do to keep that on the table. But, regardless, Mardi Gras is a huge part of our celebration here. And if your folks in your public affairs office do a great job of helping the citizens see all of the incredible celebrations that are in and around Mardi Gras. And you can see that on your social media site for sure. But it was a fun year this year, wasn't it?
It was. Like I said, we had a birthday cake coming down. The Gulf Coast Carnival Association float. The first float was a happy birthday, Biloxi, 325 years, February 13th, 1699, and absolutely it was a great day, perfect day, and my granddaughter Ansley was one of the pages for Queen Elizabeth. So it was a terrific year for us, and I said the chief estimated a crowd of about 80,000, and my son-in-law was actually captain of Carnival, Keith Wade, my favorite son-in-law. He's my only son-in-law, but he's my favorite son-in-law. He did a great job, and so it was a great year. Neptune the week before was terrific, and the night parade, and coupled with hundreds of floats and vehicles in both of those events was great, and bands, and it was just a good time had by all. And
we had good weather too, man. And you had Chapel Hart from Mississippi, from Poplar actually, and they are now in New Orleans, who've been on the national competition. I think what was
American Idol, I think.
No, America's Got Talent. America's Got Talent. Yeah, for sure. That's the one. And they've just back from their first major tour, but they were I guess, was it Grand Marshals? Is that what you refer to
Right.
them as? Yeah.
Neptune, Grand Marshal of Neptune organization.
And look, when they talked, they got a lot of followers. So when they're on social media talking about how proud they are to be in the Neptune parade in Biloxi, they're talking to the world. It's pretty cool to be able to see that, isn't it?
They had a good time too, I can tell you. That experience was great for them and great for us, great for Biloxi.
So yeah, we have a lot of. I saw Roger Wicker was in town for a parade, and I mean it's just cool. I mean it's a exciting time. I know Ann and her sister Lisa, they take the family and meet up with Peter and their family. I got to where I don't like the crowds anymore. I stay home, and this time I actually stay home with one of our grandkids, but. It's a fun time of the year for the city, but it hits at a time when you got a lot on your mind. You got the State of the City address coming up. There's an awful lot to talk about these days, isn't there?
All the time. I mean, like I said, at this time of year, from January on to was it how many days? 60 days, 90 days of legislative games, and that goes on right now. So it's right in the middle of it. Then you in your mid-year kind of consideration as far as budget and projects, but our projects, the main project, hopefully we'll get MDOT and CSX approval for their right of way to bid the Pops Ferry extension, and that will be another significant move. So we hopefully in a year that will be completed. But just to bid this thing, we have the funds and the engineering plans and the whole transportation plan will kick it into high gear. We, of course, Rouse's, just understanding that we were going to do that. Rouse's is, June, July, maybe, opening their 60,000 square foot retail facility, which is, it was going to kick some other significant plays in that area. But that extension is a big deal. And I'm really proud to say that the county and some of the state and then us, we borrowed some money at absolutely the right time to do this. So I'm proud of that win. And,
hey, listen, it's exciting about Rouse's. One of the opportunities I had as president of NOLA Media Group when I was in New Orleans is to get to know Donnie Rouse and his team there. And they have, the Rouse's brand, they figured it out. They figured out how to play in a world where you've got Walmart and super Walmarts and neighborhood Walmarts and some of the other things that are happening at some of the other major brands. They have figured out how to find their niche. And
that's right. And their value, the value in shopping there is not all dollars and cents, but it's service and capacity and some of the things in looking at some of the preliminary just cafeteria eating kinds of components, and that's going to be in this store, that's going to be like no other. The one in Gulfport is pretty strong, but this is going to be a step up. So
what they've done for people they've got a couple of a series flagship in downtown New Orleans, which I spent a lot of time at, but they've really just really refined and have been very innovative about how they've done a lot of local sourcing. That's kind of their thing. And there's a sense of the Southern culture. And in the case of Louisiana, obviously a little bit of Cajun and seafood and all that. They figured that stuff out. People who have experienced the Gulfport store, it's a fine store. It's a really good store, and they continue to do things to improve upon it. But if you look at all the concepts they've done at Rouse's, really, and they've continued to grow, multi-state organization, most of those concepts are going to come to play in the very significant multi-million-dollar investment they're making in Biloxi. That's pretty exciting, isn't it?
No, it really is. These companies, and when they look at expansion and capital and opportunities, they use a little, not so much artificial intelligence, but they got native intelligence that say this is what it could do and possibly why, from the drive time to the average income. People always ask, well, how come we can't do this? Or how come we can't do that? Well, companies are driven by market matrix and opportunity. That's every company. Whether it's a casino, whether it's a hotel, whether it's a shoe store, or the things we see at Rouse's. So we're comfortable that we must be doing some things right, because those triggers are not pulled unless the factors are right. We do have another little challenge, like in the east side, a little bit further down the peninsula. in that people, the companies and their algorithms can't understand that, the peninsula is home to about 7,000 hotel rooms. Okay. And you look at the occupancy on weekends, Biloxi is not just 50,000 people. When you do this 3.2 or 4.2 million visitors a year in the 7,000 hotel rooms, it's more like 100,000. So, if you just look at Covert Street between, the Beau Rivage and IP, that's a significant population that kind of, increases the opportunity. That's our challenge is that, hey, do you realize? And you got Keesler and you got, a lot of other things that come into play when you evaluate what should I do with my money.
Boy, that's a big deal, actually, and it really plays to the economic value of Biloxi as an expansion opportunity to a number of different businesses, not just grocery stores. Hey, when we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with FoFo Gilich. We'll see you after this. Welcome to the Ricky Matthews Show. Welcome back from the Citizens Bank studio. We have my friend, the mayor of the city of Biloxi, FoFo Gilich. Hey, before we leave Rouse's, just one other quick point. I work out at Planet Fitness, so it's 2 miles from my house. So I'll run to work out and do a brisk walk back, and it's just kind of part of my routine. So I've been able to watch the former Winn-Dixie building in the process of converting to Rouse's. And man, I was surprised they didn't take the roof off, because they went in there and gutted that darn thing. And I mean, they didn't try to save anything. They're going all in on that facility, aren't they?
I think they're putting about $13 million in getting the 4 subsystems and so forth. I mean, it's all a brand new foundation, if you will. But to do the things that they need to do with lighting and those other refrigeration and all that, it was first class. I mean, they spared no expense to get it right, and I think that's what we're real tickled.
Yeah.
All these things add up. Just a little bit down the road, in about a year and a half, I think, is when the global Keesler Federal Credit Union begins their expansion, and that's going to be 1,500 jobs on that one spot. So that's all kind of cross-haired to the Pass Road, Highway 90. Expansion of Pops Ferry. So
how we're gonna, yeah. So let's talk about that for a minute, because we've chatted about it before. There's this important headquarters for Keesler Federal. It's how we're going to handle the traffic there, because it's going to, with that number of people coming in and out of there, is there going to be a specific traffic plan for specifically there?
Yeah, well, looking at the redesign, we're putting about $3 million in the interchange where you can do 4 lanes instead of stacking up. Suppose you're coming from the west going to the east, and you got to go across that 2-lane bridge, right?
Yeah.
And how do you, we're going to expand it 4-lane as much as we can, probably a quarter of a mile, maybe a little bit more than that. So you'll be able to take 2 lanes off of Pass Road going north, and the same thing, from the other direction. But then you go all the way to Highway 90. It's tough if you got to go reach Highway 90 and you got to make that little jog to get to Boulevard, and then another jog to get by the Coliseum. So it's going to be straightforward. The traffic flow from the west will be enhanced, I think, and from the east also from on Pass Road. So
when you extend, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, the plan is pretty solid in the investment in the interchange where they come together, as well as at Highway 90, which then again gets you in a mode where we talked about it before, that this now touches a major Highway 90, and it's not a Biloxi road anymore. It can be a state aid road, which puts us in eventually, a new 4-lane, no drawbridge situation. But right now we've in the middle of about $15 million of rehabbing the drawbridge, so you don't have to have a crowbar in order to make sure it fits when the temperature changes. And that's, we're going to fix the mechanism there, and the grid, and the grade, or all those kinds of things will be fixed. So that's in process also. So we're doing what we can. Those bridges are like building submarines. It takes 10 years to do these things.
Well, as mayor, we went through this conversation about, I think the important part of having a conversation about, if the community wanted to correct that bridge, If we wanted to do it now, the only way we would be able to afford to do it now would to be able to make it a toll road. And people pushed back on that, and we decided that's not the right approach. But if we were going to fix it, we wouldn't have a drawbridge. We would have a high bridge that gets over the canal there and eventually obviously goes on down to Highway 90. And the problem with this is that the city owns that bridge. It's not a state bridge. It's not a federal bridge. And by the time the money gets to something like a city of Biloxi to build infrastructure like a bridge, none of it is left. There's no money left. So the only hope we have to change the priority of the Pops Ferry Road Bridge is to get that designated a state highway. And that's what you're hoping to do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that will be a real, a real deal. Once we open that in a year from now, it will be touching the major, highway that we have, and that's Highway 90. So we're cool. We just got to keep pushing.
And hopefully that will change the calculus and all of that. I enjoy having sort of updates with Matt McDonald, the work at the Coliseum. They've had like one record performance after another. I mean, unbelievably. I mean, they're just knocking the ball out of the park on concerts, etc. So ultimately, I know there's been a lot of give and take and negotiation with them. Finally, you've worked through most of that. Will there be an entrance from Pops Ferry into the Coliseum, or you have to go down to Highway 90 to get in?
No, you'll be able to come out. That's part of it's about, I would guess, about the request from the Coliseum and their board to enhance, an underpass that ties both of their parking facilities as well as a cut through into the highway or into the Coliseum right about midway to the convention center from the expanded road. That's there.
Yeah.
And again, we've requested, and we got support from the county in order to come up with that. That's $3.67 million. I think that's what the latest count was. But that's not coming out of Biloxi's nickel. That's coming out of the Coliseum and directly put them in a position to do a few things. But one is to have a greater opportunity to maybe get a convention center, hotel facility there. But
we all know that would be terrific to have that. The really significant, what I would call tier one, not that we will ever be exactly a tier one, but we can be working in that direction. Destination resort is to have a hotel adjacent to your convention space, right. And hopefully that will work out at some point in the future. But as you think about doing a State of the City address, you can't help but think about, from the moment you walked in that door, the kind of infrastructure management that you've had to do as mayor. I mean, the amount of money being spent through phases of work and development of infrastructure and redevelopment of infrastructure in the city is really mind-boggling, isn't it?
It blew my mind. In 2015, we had 55 miles of road torn up, and a project that was total $340-something million worth of infrastructure, deep sewer, new water, new storm drain, new surfaces, new curbs, and to date, since 2015, I think we've paid right at $300 million. So we've delivered $300 million. And as I said, I know more about construction and those legal terms and the games that contractors and engineers and developers play than I really wanted to know about. But it is what it is, and kind of reaching back about the dream we had or the plans we had for our Biloxi Beach Connector, taking 67 all the way to Highway 90. Okay, at the time, 2015, when we had it designed, the whole 2 new causeways, 2 bridges, as well as the connection to the highway, was $255 million. Now 1 bridge is $200 million. So I mean, it is what it is. But that's all still part of the dream. That phase A is what we're getting ready to bid out. So that first part of this thing, and then keeping the bridge open and keeping it movable. Because if you ever been trapped on it for 15 minutes, feels like it's 2 hours, even if it is, But it is what it is, and we're going to do the best what we can do.
Hey, well, listen, it is not the sexiest part of being a mayor. There's no doubt about it. But what goes on underneath the roads in terms of infrastructure is ultimately the biggest enabling characteristic for growth in a city, isn't it?
Oh, no doubt. I mean, just looking at things, what has to move under the city? What has to move aerial? These things have to happen. You don't have an opportunity, to shut down for a day. Or, I mean, it's got to be done within hours. If over the years, you look at the initial sewer system was done in 1957, I think, and it with a lifespan of 25 years. And that's what we've been running on, we've been a little bit overtime on water and sewer. Well, in this situation where we've rebuilt, especially the east, from St. Michael's all the way to the Beach Road, we're eliminating by using very deep gravity-fed sewer systems that we have eliminated about 70 lift stations. There was 175 lift stations. So, if you lose power, stuff doesn't go anywhere. And so the design was righteous, so to speak, and the goal was, but it's still costly. And if you've ever seen a 34-foot hole, in Biloxi, it's scary. It's like the reverse of a pyramid on how you got to do things. And
yeah. But hey, listen, FoFo, I tell you, one of the things, of course, we stayed at our house on Back Bay for Hurricane Katrina, and one of you really got a chance to really appreciate what you're saying is because in some cases storm drains were getting in the way of sewage drains, and as soon as the water started to come up, the very first thing that happened before the water actually started to come into the house is that the stormwater infiltrated the sewage system, and out of every hole in the house, sewage started backing up into the house. That was the first thing that happened. People don't think of it in those terms, but when you've got an outdated system, those are the kind of things that happen, and it alerts you rapidly. Woo, we got some things that need to be fixed. Hey, listen, when we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with FoFo Gilich as he barrels toward his State of the City address. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank studio, and we have my friend, the mayor of the city of Biloxi, FoFo Gilich. And we were talking, man, it ain't sexy, but when you're talking about stormwater drainage and water and sewage and all that stuff, did you ever think in your wildest imagination that you would become kind of a project manager? Because that's what you became initially.
Oh. Well, we manage projects, but not to the extent of what you have to touch and what you have to consider. And then this is how you do it in a public operation. You and I in business can pull the trigger and understanding what's important to me, and getting multiple quotes and making sure there's no obstacles from the federal money related to. And it is complicated, but we're able to put a team together and make sure that those people who have expertise on this is what you can do, it's what you can do. I'll give all of them some ideas about what needs to be done, but then how can we do it the right way without having complications from the federal government or some, or state government. So that's the challenge, of actually making things, keeping it functional and keeping it, safe, friendly, and beautiful. But it's a mess as far as, what you have to, what comes through this door, so to speak.
It's amazing. Isn't it amazing that going on 19 years after Katrina that we're still doing major infrastructure fixes? It's amazing, isn't it?
It is. People, so much, there's so much to it. I mean, you run across things and valves and the T's and stuff like that. I mean, it's just like we were doing Howard Avenue in the St. Michael's 1 and 2. We're going down Howard Avenue from about Crawford Street to Rose Street and 19 feet down. So we're coming from about 10 feet down to 34 foot down where the sewer flows. At 19 foot down, we ran across a pool of creosote. And creosote is, of course, hazardous, and timeout, and everybody calls, everybody says. Bottom line is we had to remove 2,500 cubic yards of this creosote and dispose of it, in a hazardous waste situation. That says, okay, stop for about 6 months, add another $800,000, and hope somebody will pay for it. You have no options. You got to get it done. You have to have it removed, and then you just hope you can, survive the blow, so to speak. But we did. But that happens all the time. With with the cemetery problem where we uncovered some, a grave and some bones. That took a year and about 1.2 million, and proved that this was not a prehistoric, not an Indian, burial site. Because anyway, the state examiner kept the bones and said this was a coffin burial, and it was flat on one side. I mean, I could write a book about it. Come on, man.
Well, like, really, when you do, you and I chatted about this before, but it literally is an archaeological dig. You don't know what you're going to discover when you're going that depth in an old city like Biloxi, do you? You just don't know.
Especially when you get on the point. I mean, they're doing some things right on the property right now. About every 10 feet, they're poking a hole and figuring out that there's no, archaeological issues about, the possibility of development on that site. But, it's a great privilege and a great honor to be sort of, gotten, this historic and this great city that everybody, generation after generation, that will enjoy this.
So when you're preparing for a State of the City address, certainly these things are part of it. But the things that probably give you the most pride is when you focus on the amount of development that's taking place in the city right now. It's, looking at downtown and the transformative effort that's happening there. There's a lot to talk about and be proud of, isn't there?
Oh, it is, and it's fun too. I mean, to be part of it. The Rouses was great. It was a great, event, and Ground Zero, and the redevelopment of the Barks building. Looking at the even the toasted yolk. Those kinds of things. Bit by bit will make it very cool, not just cool. And everybody, you don't have to say Biloxi, Mississippi. You just have to say Biloxi now. They get it. People get it now, and that's what's It's sort of compensation for whatever pain in the behind kind of effort you got to do 24/7. I don't know if I told you the story, but they jump on me about being mayor, you're on top of the world. I said, let me tell you something. My first job, you may have heard this, but somebody might not have heard this. My first job that I got paid for was I was a can catcher at my grandfather's Seacoast Packing Company, the site of where Golden Nugget is. So us can catchers were about 11 or 12 years old. We would catch the cans after the shrimp were put in the cans and the tops put on the can, and we would put them in a rack so they could be pressure cooked. So it's just moved two cans at a time. And probably all us first cousins were around the two topping machines that we had at the factory. Well, as I shared with my friends when they jump on me, I said I was making $1.25 an hour then. I said, that's what I'm making now, $1.25 an hour. So, that's it in a nutshell. But
yeah, it is a labor of love for sure, And truth is, FoFo people generally can appreciate the fact that you didn't really have to be mayor. I mean, you weren't looking for a promotion in life at the time. You had a lot of success in your life, and you wanted to give back to your city, a city you loved, and you've been dedicated to that cause, and that's what drives you, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Well, our grandparents, we looking, even when you think about Fred Hayes, some of the great things that have happened, it's because our previous generations, our ancestors, our grandparents' generation, and even a little bit before them, what they did for us so we could be successful is what you need to pay forward for our kids and our grandkids. Hey, this is you don't have to do this, but I want to do this.
Yeah. I think about as I'm married into the Bohanovich clan, and I think about the track that Ann's grandparents on her father's side, went through from Croatia to go through Ellis Island to get here. And, to remember this beautiful place they left, but the repressed place they left, and kind of decisions it took for them to make a decision to relocate to Biloxi, and so many others that did that. You look back in time and think about how hard they worked to make the city viable and to contribute back to the city and to give their families a life. And now here my kids are, 3 generations removed from that, and having tremendous opportunities in life, and the role that Biloxi and that culture and that heritage and those traditions played in their lives. We've come so far, man. I mean, it's amazing how far we've come, isn't it?
We were fortunate about people who came before us and they instill in me and you how to think through this, look, evaluate every path you could go down and determine as best you can. You make mistakes, but you're supposed to make mistakes, but you're supposed to learn from mistakes, and you understand, hey, what's the deal? This is what you need to do. And
Yeah.
you can't be bashful. You're gonna make mistakes, but the net result, it will be beneficial. You can be cautious, but guess what? When you're real cautious, things don't happen. You got to step out every once in a while.
You had a Supreme Court ruling that is working in the city's favor as it relates to Veterans Avenue and what can happen there off the beach. How do you view all of that?
Well, there's some games being played up in the legislature, but what drives me is what can we deliver based on what RW was doing. If that's what you're talking about, the veterans opportunity, how much it costs to build piers. I've met with Senator Wicker and Ezell just about replacing the 800 feet pier in Pavilion at the Lighthouse. Now, what we were going to get is about a $3.5 million pier at the foot, regardless of whether that has nothing to do with casinos. That's their perception about what's going on. We wanted Harrison County and Biloxi was in sync. If this guy wanted to build, some of these people have never been to Santa Monica, have never been to Galveston, never seen those kinds of things that are happening on the waterfront. Okay, and nobody from Jackson or anywhere else can tell me what's best for Biloxi. Biloxians and the county and city where we are, we know what's best. Give me a break, and application after application, opportunity after opportunity. These things, obstacles, I call it, get in the way. Now, the law that's part of this thing that's being considered is going to unhook the ports and harbor legislation since 1935. Now, can you imagine? Forget about casinos. Can you imagine? You look at some of those old pictures from the point. You know where piers were. You know where canneries were. You know where restaurants and things were. That's going to throw another level. I'm completely in a mode that they know not what they do. Okay, and so that's why if you feel like my blood pressure went up, and my blood pressure didn't go up, but this is think your way through this ball game, because I know. Look at the point. They lost a case with the Fisherman's Wharf. Okay, and I think he'll probably try to appeal it or undo the ball game, and that's my perception of what's going on. Hey,
why don't we do this? When we come back on the other side, we'll just kind of remind you what this issue is about, and it's it speaks to the Secretary of State and even the Attorney General and whether she was going to get involved. And I mean, it's a complicated case that the city appealed to the state Supreme Court, got a ruling in its favor, and some think this is going to be a changing of the gaming rules and whatever. We'll just see, in fact, what his read on that is. We'll see you more with FoFo Gilich on the other side. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio for the final segment with my friend, the mayor of the city of Biloxi, Mayor FoFo Gilich. And FoFo, we were talking about RW development and all that's happening there. Every time I look over there, something new is coming up that's family oriented or whatever. But there was this discussion about the city building a pier there. And some disagreement with the Secretary of State over whether that should be leased Tidelands. And it's a complicated issue that plays to this perception from some casinos that we could be changing the rules by approving this and enabling potentially another casino to emerge there. And so there's been what seems like on the surface just a conversation about putting a public pier there of some sort that would require some type of lease to have it there. It's evolved into this bigger conversation and kind of this historic battle or fight with the Secretary of State and the Supreme Court getting involved. And did I set this up properly? Well,
the pier was there, right? And long before the Secretary of State and the prior Secretary of State at Coliseum, okay, that pier was there. And guess who gave them the authority to put that pier there? The Biloxi Port Authority, right? So our position, not only there, we did it. I went through this when Delbert was Secretary of State at Oak Street. You remember that? You probably use that, coming
Yes.
from your phone calls. The Biloxi Port Authority has and guess, even think back a little bit further. Without the first bit of state money during the Biloxi administration, they built the Point Cadet Marina, right? Without the Secretary of State or Tidelands, it became fashionable for them to say, let me cash in. And that's pretty much, the way they got their feelings hurt. But, what I'm adamant about is the local jurisdiction, the me and the council and those folks in the neighborhoods know a little bit, have a little bit of understanding what works for the local jurisdiction, not somebody from Jackson or even Pascagoula. This worked for Biloxi and it's working for the state. Okay. And if their perception is this is trying to get more, it is what it is. My position is this: Biloxi, its port and authority cannot be revoked. This legislation that's proposed will unhook things that have been in place since 1935. And I'll be passionate and I'll be adamant about you're throwing levels of development obstacles that you don't have to do. And on every occasion, the results have been better for the state of Mississippi than not. So
and so the Supreme Court kind of saw it your way.
Absolutely. You look at the language of RW. You look at the language. He just got beat at the Fisherman's Wharf. They thought they owned that property, and they got beat there. And if he appeals that, they're going to get beat again. That'll be 6 for 6. This position. Only way he can change it is redo the law, and that's what's going on. So let's change the ball game. I mean, the Secretary of State mentioned that I don't agree with the Supreme Court. So I'm going to work with my friends in the legislature to change it. That's written down. You can see that. So I'm not haming anybody personally, but I'm protecting what needs to be done for local jurisdictions. And it was the same with us, same with Gulfport, same with people who live on who has more waterfront opportunities than anybody. Yeah. Biloxi does.
Let me ask you this question, because I don't know the answer, but who in the legislature is shepherding legislation that would stop you from wanting to do what you want to do?
Blunt. From the Senate side, that's how it was introduced, and I'm not sure.
Who? I know what I'm saying is there a senator or a representative who owns the legislation and is shepherding that through?
Blunt, I think from a Senate standpoint, I'm not sure who it is from the House. I read a little bit of that, but it got me excited enough that I've been, engaged with my brother mayors and the council. Hey, this is complete nonsense. Okay, and it's just a result of somebody's feelings hurt. So let's change the rules. It says, in Judge Slogle's decision, not only the Secretary of State does not have sole authority to allow these sort of developments, and whether it's gaming or not gaming, or it just, hey, we are the jurisdiction where the rubber meets the road, and I don't need to ask for these different things. There's a lot of game playing, so to speak. You just sign it. We have complete control. And hey, my position is clear. I'm not going to back off on that.
And the Supreme Court kind of saw it your way. So it'd be interesting to see if legislation can evolve that would stop the city from doing what it historically does.
For hundreds of years, really.
Yeah. No doubt.
How'd you like to have to go get permission to do something behind your house, right?
Yeah. What I have to do now is I have to go to the DMR.
That's okay, but that's not. But not the Secretary of State. Okay.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right about that. There's no doubt about that. But listen, FoFo, it's been great to catch up with you. As I always say, we should get together more often.
Well, definitely. We'll go drink a cerveza and come to the lodge on Thursday night. I ain't gonna let you out, so we're good. For
sure. Hey, listen, it's been a pleasure, my friend.
All right, thank y'all. Appreciate it. Y'all have a good day. Thank you.
This has been Mayor FoFo Gilich from Biloxi. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.